even look too happy even. All right, let's get an update on the Boy Scout situation. So last week, for quite a while now, it started with this Sydney girl back earlier last year who was saying that she was on a mission to get girls to be able to join the Boy Scouts because she was unhappy with the Girl Scouts and what their functions were versus what Boy Scout functions were. And she wanted to have the girls be able to do the same kinds of things. I believe her father was a scout leader, so she was an honorary Boy Scout and was able to do things. We're joking around about how, okay, this is hopefully never happens, and within a year, when you know, they started making all these announcements that Boy Scouts just started caving in with everything. Now, one person actually, Genesis, who gets involved lately on my Facebook account, was saying that the numbers for Boy Scouts have actually been dropping, and that's true. But that's also because of our culture, okay? We've been talking a lot about how this ridiculous notion by the left of toxic masculinity and how they promote this feminized version of men that are supposed to be these emotional messes and not be tough at all on situations or take charge. They say they want that until they get that, and you're dealing with an estrogen level man in the house. Doesn't make sense, and they're not going to be happy unless there's some kind of mental instability with the whole relationship as a whole. But with this whole toxic masculinity idea, you have a culture that's promoting the idea that boys don't need to learn to be men anymore. And if you actually look at what the Boy Scouts has done for America as a whole, I mean, you're talking about, Brent's been on the podcast before. Him and I were in Cub Scouts together. That led to him being in Boy Scouts. That led to him being in the Army and serving in the Army and everything. There's a lot of Boy Scouts that go on with their survival skill sets and the principles and morals that they learn and get into our military and serve as the best soldiers that we have. You have some that become business leaders, political leaders and everything. But the fact of the matter remains that there's only so many different minds that get touched by either organizations or schools or parents or anything within that short period of time that you're a child, that we have this ability to mold the mindset into good morals and principles, so you don't end up with snowflakes and people protesting and going out and rioting and throwing Molotov cocktails through Starbucks window stores because they're not getting their way with an election. I mean, that is the result of trying to shy away from organizations like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, for that matter. But instead, we've been getting so far away from this that you had that Sydney girl last year. She tried to get the girls in. Unfortunately, things have just gone out of control. We actually ended up doing that. Last week we talked about how the Boy Scouts is now changing their name to just the Scouts because they're having girls involved with the organization. The Girl Scouts over the last year have been saying, this is ridiculous. I can't believe that the Boy Scouts aren't fighting back on this. Basically saying the Boy Scouts should grow a set of balls. Who would have thought? The Girl Scouts actually end up having more balls on this situation than the Boy Scouts. But then the Girl Scouts are getting screwed over as well, because you have a certain section of the Girl Scouts that are leaving that for the Boy Scout organization. And as we said in the last podcast, instead of fixing what's broken, which may be the Girl Scouts, instead of fixing that and saying, hey, we're losing membership because girls actually want to be doing some of the survival skill set stuff and tying knots or whatever the heck they were interested in. They want to be doing that kind of stuff that the Boy Scouts are doing. Let's bring in some professionals and try to do that on our side too, along with all the other stuff that we're doing. But instead, you go against the mentality of what we've been talking about for years now, the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The Boy Scouts wasn't broken. It was losing membership, yes. But maybe they should have adapted to the times as well and brought up with the technology age and made a social media presence to get more membership and get them involved in some newer techniques and still hang on to the survival skill sets as well as the morals and principles and everything else that go along with it. There was a way to promote that and keep that membership, but to change everything to allow girls, and it just doesn't make any sense. Well, now we're starting to see the ramifications of that with an update this week. 425,000 drop out of the Boy Scouts. Okay, so almost 500,000 within 1 week after the name change. Now, this has actually a lot to do. It says this is from Faithwire. The 118-year-old organization, the Boy Scouts of America, recently announced that they are changing the name of the group to be more welcoming and inclusive to all youth. Early last year, the Boy Scouts group announced that they would start letting girls into their organization, and in 2019 would allow them to become Eagle Scouts. Last week, the Boy Scouts of America released a statement explaining the name change, citing a campaign called Scout Me In. It's got to be Scout Me Out in this story. Many family members have been upset with the name change and the rule changes, as they believe it is wise to have the boys and girls separated. Yeah, come to think of it, going on camping trips out in the middle of the woods with teenage boys and girls, well, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, it's just survival skill sets, right? Only 1 week has passed since the Boy Scouts of America announced their name change, and already 425,000 boys have dropped out of the organization thanks to one large church cutting ties with the organization. This past Tuesday, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced that they were parting ways with the organization. They released a statement announcing that they would phase out all of this by December 31st of 2019. And their reasoning, along with their reasoning. The statement was issued by both the LDS Church and the Boy Scouts of America, in which the church stated that they need a more global approach as their membership was global. In this century of shared experience, the church has grown from a U.S.-centered institution to a worldwide organization with a majority of its membership living outside the United States. That trend is accelerating. The church has increasingly felt the need to create and implement a uniform youth leadership and development program that serves its members globally. In so doing, it will be necessary for the church to discontinue its role as a chartered partner with the Boy Scouts of America. And as we said last week, how about we call a new organization the Future Men of America that don't apologize for anything. So the Church of Latter-day Saints is is that what it is? Church of Latter-day, yeah. It's the LDS Church, is obviously the Mormon Church. So, are the 425,000 members that left the Boy Scouts all Mormon members? I don't really know, but you can be sure that within the first week of this happening, almost 500,000 Boy Scouts dropping out. That's a bigger membership loss situation than what they were dealing with before. So you didn't fix anything. You actually made things a lot worse. The other thing is, too, with this, if this is within the first week, this is only going to get worse. The Scouts, as it's now called, is going to see a massive dropout, and this is just the beginning of that. So keep an eye out. We'll keep on updating you on the situation as we hear more and more news. But in the meantime, almost 500,000 in 1 week is quite the punch to the pants, as they would say, for the Boy Scouts of America.